Hello and welcome to another Supra build video. Hope you're all doing well, and let's start this video. So in this video my plan is to actually get the engine finally in the car so I can start working on the wiring. But before I do that, there are several things I have to do, such as bolt up the gearbox adapter, bolt up the gearbox, obviously the clutch and the flywheel, and also I need to put in the original Supra power steering lines. So I'm going to start with the power steering lines. I have already tried to put them in, but I couldn't remember how they were positioned initially when I got the car, and obviously when I had the 1UZ in the car I had to run different lines. Luckily I kept the Supra ones, so I'm going to try to put them back in and route them in the right place. So yeah, I'm going to refer to the diagrams that there are available online. I had a look online for pictures, unfortunately couldn't find anything, so I'll just have to figure it out as I go along, and then I can move on to bolting up the gearbox bits. So let's start. Okay, not gonna lie, I have no idea which way the pipes run. So from the diagram, this is correct, so this needs to be somewhere around here. And it feels like there might need to be another bracket because this is way too far and there's no way for this to kind of move back. So this doesn't make much sense. So I think once I have the engine in the right place and I can bolt up this side of pipe, I'll see slightly better where the other pipe needs to go. Obviously I have the other side, which is the return, I believe. Must be the return, yeah. I don't actually know where this goes, and I believe it does look bent, which would have been bent before I got it, so that doesn't help. Obviously there's no brackets or anything like that, so it might be a case that I'm just going to run something of my own. So obviously I can just remove that or most of the piping and just run my own. I might actually play around later on with running some of the 1UZ stuff again, because that was linked up to an oil cooler. So that might be a better option than trying to reuse this, because it's all bent, and yeah, there's absolutely no chance I'm going to be able to get that in place. So I'm going to ignore that issue for now and move on to bolting up the engine. With the engine, so I found some of these brackets. So I kind of wish I would have ordered some new ones and have the shiny ones. This one's a bit cleaner. Obviously that still needs bolting up. One thing that I had to order in, because I wasn't able to find it locally, is these bolts. So the bolts I had from the 1UZ conversion stage, it had just normal bolts which didn't fit because the opening here is quite small. And in fact, yeah, so this just barely fits, as you can see. So I had to order them in online. Luckily, I've started doing this a couple of days ago, so I was able to source that online because no one locally stocked any. So what I'm going to do next is bolt up the adapter plate, and then I am going to bolt up the flywheel, clutch, if I have the bolts for the pressure plate, and then I should be able to get the gearbox back on. When I say back on, just on, because this engine didn't have a gearbox that came from BMW. So let's do that. So as you can see, the engine is now on the floor, clutch is in, on, together with the flywheel and the adapter plate. So for the adapter plate, these bolts are M12 by 30. They could be 25s, I had to grind them down. So the top two, they go straight into the block, so obviously them being too long is not good, because it's not going to, well, in that case they wouldn't press the plates against the block. The other ones, as you can see, they go straight through, so it's fine that they're a bit longer, but the top ones could be definitely a bit shorter. Nothing that an angle grinder couldn't sort. I've got the flywheel on, so the flywheel bolts are torqued up to 75 Newton meters with Loctite. Should be good to go. Flywheel, the clutch pressure plate, all the original BMW bolts, so they are 34 Newton meters. Also use this alignment tool that hopefully I can remove. Yeah, I'll have to get some pliers or something like that to get the alignment tool out, because the 2 discs and the bearing, the output bearing, whatever it's called. So just to make my life easier to put the gearbox on, a nice little tool to use. So I will get that removed and then I can bolt the gearbox on, and then it's time to put the engine in the car. So let's crack on. Ta-da! And the engine is finally in. I'll be honest, it's been in for a week or so now since the last clip. It's just been very cold and I've been working on the gearbox mount, so I didn't really film anything in between. I've done some research into the power steering pump. I have received the outlet thing that I mentioned in the previous video, I think, or something like that. So I received that now from Japan, so I can convert this power steering pump to run the remote power steering tank thing, which is good news. But what I found is that the reason my power steering pipe doesn't fit, and it's supposed to go something like that, and as you can see it fits well in this position, or something like that. So the reason that doesn't fit is because the GS300, has a setup like this with different pressure control stuff. So my current options are either find the bits to convert this to the Supra style power steering pump. Also, it is potentially an option that the facelift Supra did have a different power steering pipe. That's also an option. I could just run the GS300 pump and have a custom pipe made, or find a GS300 one and see if that fits. Then the other option is to fit a BMW power steering pump, which I've seen people do, like an E46 power steering pump, and just run that. Apparently it even lines up on the OEM bracket, which is nice. So basically the bracket that's there, that stays, and I just remove the unit itself, and apparently that fits. So that's my option that I'm not 100% keen on at the moment. I would rather run the OEM pump and just keep it as stock as possible from that perspective. But a brand new pump, which I don't think it's even genuine, is £180. Do I want to spend that much on a pump? Really, no. And I can't find a used one, unfortunately. So I'm still thinking about that, but the access is pretty good, so I can leave that till later. I've trimmed down the cam bolt cover. So the VVTi one is like goes to about there, and it gets in the way of coil packs. So I'm just gonna run this for now. I might get a clear one at some point, maybe. Again, that's not on the priority list. Another thing I've received from Japan is this pipe. I haven't bolted it in. I do have a new gasket to go on there, so I just need to grab that and bolt it all up, and there's another bolt to hold it there. So again, once I have grabbed the gasket, I will do that. I need to figure out where this second pipe goes, so that's going to be the feed, I guess, for the heater matrix. Took me a while to think of the name. So again, that's something to think about. And oh yes, I forgot to mention that before I put the engine in, I have connected the clutch line, bled the clutch, and the engine was hanging up like there, so I don't think that made it possible to fully bleed the clutch, and I think there was some air still trapped in there. So That's just needs rebleeding, but I'm going to take the pipe off anyway because as you can see it's a bit twisted, which is not ideal. Another issue I found, unfortunately, is with the intake manifold there, which I'm going to grab it actually. There we go. So obviously that's not bolted in, but the issue I found is that this guy doesn't fit. So as you can see, there's obviously once it bolts up, it goes higher up, but the throttle body basically doesn't fit, unfortunately. It's way out by a couple of inches. So there's going to be something that I will need to do with the fuse box. Luckily it's the fuse box itself, and I won't be able to show you, it's not very deep, so what I'll be able to do is most likely cut up this box underneath and mount it differently, do some plastic welding. Not a big deal, just an extra job that I'll have to do. Obviously the power steering line's still to figure out, obviously injectors still to buy, fueling still to sort out. I do need to get an external fuel pressure regulator. I haven't figured out which way I'm going to run the return and the feed. I was kind of just messing around with these fittings that I had. So I think that's pretty much it for the engine side of things. So obviously once I put the engine in, I was figuring out how to make it look straight towards the back end. So what I was actually doing, so I've put a laser like so, and just kind of put it in the right place where I needed it to be, making sure it's in the middle, so the line is in the middle there, and then basically making sure that the line is in the middle there. So obviously the laser was a bit higher, so making sure the engine is, or the laser is in the middle of the engine. And before that, sorry, right, I'll start again. I've put a laser like this, made sure that the line on the crankshaft is in the middle. Then I was measuring from this point to that point, found the middle of this, of here, and made sure that the laser is in the middle of that, and then basically push the engine to the left or to the right so that the laser is in the middle of the engine bay, and then the laser is also, or the engine is in the same point as the laser. And that basically made me able to line up the engine with the gearbox and the diff and the other things. So basically the engine is now straight in. I know on video, I think actually on video it looks straight. In person for me it looks skewed. However, I've measured it in multiple places and it looks fine. Also, as a reference, what I did, and let me get this in this tight spot. So basically I was measuring from the chassis rail from this side to that side. Again, found a middle point, and then was making sure that the gearbox, or the middle of that, lines up with this ridge, which it does now. And I just need to put the gearbox mount on. So obviously I had the custom engine mount, sorry, gearbox mount from the 1UZ setup. That setup was obviously different, the engine was different, and the gearbox I think is same, although I actually need to double check. I think the gearbox might be a ZF and another GM. Not that it makes much difference, they're still both 5-speed gearboxes, and the clutch fits, so that's all that matters to me. But the gearbox ultimately sits in a different space, or a different place even, and the old mount that I made doesn't line up, or didn't line up. I was not really happy with the initial version, but I have kind of modified that version because I kind of knew it worked. It wasn't pretty. It definitely wasn't pretty, and I'll just show it to you. So here is the great example of how not to weld. But basically it goes like this. I made 2 plates and done digital welding, I made 2 plates like this that bolted up to the chassis. I made these stands that bolted up to the rubber mounts on the gearbox, and then just welded an angle iron like that. Obviously, I had to modify it for the gearbox because the gearbox sticks out there quite a bit. It's not pretty. It definitely needs redoing. I have so I had to re-drill some of the holes from when this was on 1UZ engine and gearbox setup. I've ended up welding the wrong holes, drilling in the wrong spots, and I've just run out of patience. Ideally, all this needs redoing and made look pretty. I mean, it's strong enough. It works. It's in the right place. It just looks ugly, and ideally, I would redo it. But at the moment, I just want to get the whole setup done, running, driving, and I've got other things to prioritize at the moment. And even though, that doesn't look pretty, just to figure out where all the holes go and, the angles and stuff like that, just today to redo the gearbox mount from the initial version from 1UZ setup to how it is now, it took me 4 hours, and I've started it the previous, a few days ago, and, I spent a couple of hours there. So when you don't have experience of doing something like that, it definitely takes a lot of time and figuring out. And unfortunately, with this one, I've just run out of patience. I might redo it at one point. I'm just not going to bother about it. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it with this setup. So, yeah. Houston, we have a problem. So, I've fitted up the gearbox mount, which looks like that. It works. That's all I'm gonna say. It works. It looks fine. So for those who have followed the 1UZ swap, will remember that I did modify a gear linkage. So me being hopeful that's gonna work with this setup. So this is neutral, and I'm trying to show the position of it as best as I can. So this is where I would expect neutral to be, but this is actually in gear. This is in neutral, and there's not enough space actually over there to slug the gear. So basically now I'll have to take the gearbox mount off to drop the gearbox a little bit, so I can take off the mount or even the gear linkage, and I will have to modify it again. I think it needs to be shorter. I'll have to figure out by how much. The only problem is last time I modified it, so it was made to be adjustable, and there was a nut that kept coming loose, which I've welded shut. So that's going to be fun, but that is going to be something for the next video to do, because quite frankly I am out of any will to do anything at this point in time. So I will take a day off tomorrow, I think, as again later today anyway, and we'll start doing this or modifying the gear linkage next. And I need to order a few bits as well, like the coolant hoses, because I know I need them, and then I will have to get the radiator remodified again to work with the new sizes. And I think I need to look up what else I need to order. That will be coming from Japan, so it will take a few weeks minimum to get here. And obviously I need to think about the power steering solution at some point as well. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you for those who have watched this far, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. About 95% of people watching are not subscribed, and it would be nice to see some sort of feedback. So good or bad comments, feel free, and I will try to take into account anything bad. Hopefully there won't be much, but I know there will be. So feel free to comment and let me know what you think about the project, and maybe have some tips or tricks that I could follow. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.